On the morning of August 7, 1994, the residents of Oakville, Washington woke to a spooky sight. Instead of rain, translucent, gelatinous blobs were falling from the gray sky. Each was about the size of a grain of rice, but they covered a 20-square-mile area. This heavy mist of goo wasn't just strange. It was a biological mystery that would soon sicken an entire town. The first victim was Sunny Barclift. Shortly after the blobs fell, she and her mother became violently ill with flu-like symptoms, extreme exhaustion, and nausea. Even more chilling, their pet cat died after coming into contact with the substance. The goo wasn't just falling from the clouds. It was a toxic rain that seemed to carry a heavy and infectious burden. A local doctor, David Little, examined the substance under a microscope. He was stunned to find that the blobs contained human white blood cells. This spooky discovery suggested the blobs were biological in nature. How could human-like cells be raining from the atmosphere over a rural Washington town? The Oakville blobs had become a medical nightmare in the mist. The mystery turned dark when the Washington State Department of Ecology took samples. Their initial tests found two types of bacteria, Pseudomonas fluorescens and Enterobacter cloaca. While common, these can cause severe respiratory infections. The heavy question remained: how did these bacteria get into gelatinous rice falling from the clouds during a storm? The military experiment theory emerged almost immediately. Residents noted a heavy presence of military aircraft over the region in the days before the rain. Some believed the Air Force was testing a biological weapon or a dispersal agent. The spooky idea was that Oakville was a testing ground for a substance designed to incapacitate a population without killing them. Another aerial theory involved jellyfish. Some suggested that a military bombing run at sea had vaporized a massive school of jellyfish, sending their gelatinous remains into the upper atmosphere where they later rained down. But biologists pointed out that jellyfish wouldn't survive the heavy journey through the clouds, nor would they contain human white blood cells. The spooky reality was that the blobs fell 6 times over a 3-week period. Each time, the residents of Oakville fell ill. One man reported that the goo felt soapy and slippery between his fingers. The heavy air of the town was filled with the smell of rotting vegetation whenever the blobs appeared. It was a slow-motion invasion from the Washington sky. By the time private labs tried to conduct more heavy research, the official samples had mysteriously vanished from state storage. This bureaucratic disappearance fueled the conspiracy. If the blobs were just bird droppings or star jelly, why would the government delete the evidence? The Oakville blobs were now a cold case of environmental and military intrigue. Is it star jelly? This spooky phenomenon has been reported for centuries, a translucent goo that appears on the ground after meteor showers. Folklore says it is the debris of falling stars, but star jelly doesn't usually make an entire town vomit or kill household pets. The Oakville blobs were a modern mutation of an ancient heavy mystery of the Earth. In 1997, the TV show Unsolved Mysteries brought the blobs to a national audience. They sent a sample to a lab that found eukaryotic cells, complex cells found in plants and animals. The spooky lack of a definitive match meant the blobs were unique. They were a biological anomaly, mystery of fluid and fear that has never been repeated in such a heavy scale. The Oakville blobs represent the vulnerability of the environment. It is a story of toxic rain and missing samples, a puzzle that proves that the spooky can come from the very clouds that give us life. The goo was a heavy reminder that we don't always know what is being dropped into our atmosphere. Oakville was the canvas for a skyborne mystery. Today, the blobs are a fading memory for the town, but the spooky health effects lingered for years for some residents. The mystery remains unsolved because the physical evidence was taken or lost. The Oakville blobs are the ghost rain of the Pacific Northwest, a heavy story of white cells and secret skies that still haunts the Washington woods. The final mystery lies in the source. If it wasn't the military, was it a natural atmospheric phenomenon we don't understand? Some believe the blobs were biological waste dumped from a high-altitude aircraft. This unsettling thought suggests that the spooky mystery was just human negligence on a heavy and global scale. The sky is no longer a clean place. A final chilling detail from the Oakville investigation involved the dissolving nature of the substance. Within 24 hours of hitting the ground, the blobs would liquefy and vanish into the soil, leaving only a heavy chemical smell behind. This evanescent quality made it nearly impossible for independent researchers to gather fresh samples before the government. Cleanup crews arrived. One resident, a technician named Dottie Hearn, managed to keep a sample in her freezer for a short time. She noticed that the goo didn't just sit there. It seemed to pulse or vibrate when exposed to certain frequencies of light. This spooky behavior suggested a sentient or engineered quality. It wasn't just organic waste. It was a biological machine that was alive in the Washington cold. In the years following the 1994 incident, similar blobs were reported in small pockets across the globe from the Australian outback to the Scottish Highlands. Each time, the heavy symptoms followed: nausea, lethargy, and a metallic taste in the mouth. The Oakville blobs were not an isolated event. They were part of a global phenomenon of atmospheric precipitation that science refuses to name. Some theorists proposed the chemtrail connection. They believe the blobs were a coagulated form of the chemicals used in high-altitude geoengineering. When the atmospheric conditions were just right over Oakville, the mist condensed into heavy rice-sized grains and fell. The human cells found inside were likely contaminants from the laboratory where the goo was birthed. The mystery remains unsolved because of the wall of silence surrounding the military flight logs from that week. If a secret mission had gone wrong, the Oakville blobs would be the ultimate environmental liability. The town remains a spooky footnote in the annals of high strangeness, a place where the heavy sky once opened up and rained down a biological riddle that we still cannot solve. Today, when it rains in Oakville, some older residents still look up with a heavy sense of dread. They don't just see water, they see the ghost of the goo. The mystery of the Oakville blobs is a masterpiece of atmospheric horror. It is a story of gelatinous secrets and vanishing evidence, a puzzle that proves that the spooky can be translucent, wet, and everywhere.